everybody, welcome to Voyage. We've recently shot a video on higher education, different pathways to higher education in Canada basically. This episode is an hour long. To facilitate your viewing, we've put it into parts. Watch our part 1 followed by part 2. Without wasting more time, let's completely. So let's now dive a little bit deeper.
Okay.
It might sound a bit philosophical as well, might sound a little heavy as well, but we need to. So a thought-provoking article. I was researching again, and an article by Mark Spooner from University of Regina. He raises a question, and very important and vital question: what are universities for? Is it to drive the economy, address social changes, create a space for conversations, and reflect, or change the face of the city, or attract global talent, or make connections, international connections? So countries like Poland, Germany, just to kind of give you an example, these are the countries that fund higher education, mostly. Countries like UK, countries like Spain, most of the students shoulder the burden themselves. So where are we? Where are we in Canada? And do you think the cost of education drives the way we see colleges or universities? And I say this because there is a huge gap between people who can afford a university degree, which is like 3 years, 4 years, and there are people who want to just get the skills, which comes in, which is delivered in most colleges in a year, and it costs much lesser. So I was again, while I was researching, there are quite a few articles that came up saying that a lot of people, even though they have the merit, they would like to study, but their pockets won't allow. And universities now are places where only people who can afford are, taking up the seats. So what are your thoughts on these?
Okay, so okay, I understand what you mean here, what you're trying to say here. Okay, if I look at the Canadian education trend, so every person has their own motivation, but the general consensus is more in terms of that, okay, we are coming to Canada mostly with the purpose that, okay, the education is the easiest pathway for permanent residency in Canada. That is one thing. And to make things even better or lucrative for the international student, comparatively, we see, and as we earlier discussed, that the cost of education is comparatively lower than other developed nations, whether it is US, UK, and other European countries. Now, so how do we see colleges or universities? So there is always that section or a school of thought, or let's say a group of people who are genuinely there to study, and you would probably find them, or who want to study or who want to accelerate themselves in their career, or who just want to take who want to make that or take that next jump in their career. And you would probably find them in universities, and they really are there to spend it. Yes, we are here for the quality of education, and yes, Canadian education is the one to to sort of to be sought after that way. There is another school of thought, another group of people who are, well, just there that somehow let me take this particular course or this program in any of the college or any of the known university, or any institution which their agent has told them, and they get into it, just with the hopes that, okay, let me complete the visa aspect, or let me complete the uh, government requirement to appear for a PR visa that way, or for as further into the citizenship as well. Now, are they willing to spend? Yes. For them, they see it as an investment, not for their education, but for their future. That, okay, once we get that, once we reach that particular stage, then our lives will start. And that is, so in a nutshell, I would say these are some of the reasons which also make Canada as a popular destination for international student as well. So those are my simple thoughts. And in addition to this, you would also see that with the immigration trend, as you were saying that, okay, that the immigrants who are coming, they are having definitely a higher education background, or they definitely had masters. So again, that is adding kind of fuel to fire, that if you're coming here, the government has their own requirement, they have their own quota, that okay, that what, we need these many people. And then they are sometimes pushing these international students, okay, yeah, what, maybe you're not getting into a university, but here you can get into a college. It could be a skilled trade college. Why? Because again, with a with an offering that, okay, if you get into say plumbing, for that matter, there is a school for plumbing, not a bad job, nothing, it serves a requirement. Again, you can probably get $100 or $150 per an hour for whatever services you provide. But then again, these people who are coming, they're also being pushed into this as an alternative, that hey, what, we have this much sort of labor shortage, let's get you into this sort of pathway of skill trade, and let's get you up to speed. So I don't necessarily see it as a bad way, but then uh, at the end of the day, it is the person who is investing into their education and into their future, and they need to decide what they want to do with their lives. So that's pretty much it, how I would summarize it.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. It's a choice that you make at the end of the day, and you have plethora to kind of research on, and this is a decision that you arrive at. Yeah, Shayondip, how do you see university spaces?
I mean, the analogy you drew in the beginning with Germany and Spain, was it? Okay, so
Germany and Netherlands, yeah.
And Netherlands. So I think 20 years back, Canada was Germany. It's heading towards Netherlands now. It has almost reached. And it's probably because the more people you have, it's very difficult for you to distribute the limited resources that you have.
By the way, I have to cut you here. Netherlands sponsors.
Sponsors. Okay, so then sorry. So
in
Germany
contrast.
And what was the other one? Spain?
Spain in contrast, and UK.
And UK. Okay. So let's say it's heading towards UK, or it has almost reached there. And again, but then the question that you said is about research. So Canada, at least in technology and engineering, there was, at least then, there was a division called NSERT who used to heavily fund researchers in the engineering field. It was funded probably by the federal government itself. But when I had applied, and when I joined 13 years back, and I started the application process 14 years back, when I was doing a research, that's where I found that Canada is the only country who fully funds you at the master's level. So you could understand where Canada used to stand, right? And that's the whole motivation why I really picked this country. And I would say, through hundreds of emails that I sent, at least I was able to get into one course in one university who was able to fully fund me at the master's level, not at the PhD level, right? So, but I do understand that it's very, very difficult now. And the quality of education that Canada used to have was really good. And the reason why I'm saying is, part of my research that I did was I was trying to improve a work of somebody called Dr. Wahid Tarok. He was a professor in Harvard. And if you look at his education, he is master's from University of Windsor and PhD from University of Waterloo. And he's a professor in Harvard.
Oh, wow.
Right? So this is what Canada's education was, and I don't know if it has changed again. I'm not going to comment on that because I don't know, but I can give you 5 different examples of elite professors teaching in Stanford and Howard who have education from Canadian universities, like mid-level Canadian universities, right? But then again, the way that I see is students in Canada are kind of divided into 2 parts. One is students who are interested in academia, and I think Shitangshu also pointed it out, and another set of students who are more concentrating into trade skills, professional aspect of it, right? Academia students are people who did their masters, did their PhD, doing postdoctoral researches in universities, and then eventually going and becoming, associate professors, assistant professors in Canadian universities or universities across the world, or even going and becoming research scientists in different. I know a couple, you probably know them as well, who was in my university, did their PhD, did their postdoctoral studies in US, in South Carolina, and now one of them is a professor in McMaster, and another one is a research scientist in the printer company. Anyway,
Rico?
Sorry?
Printer companies, Ericsson.
No, not Ericsson.
Ericsson is not a printer company. Did you mean Rico?
Not Ericsson. There's the Epson.
Epson. Okay. Yes, Epson. Yes.
Sorry. Okay. Anyway, so but my point is, and then sorry, I lost context. And then there are set of students who join the universities just to get through, to get a job in a way, right? And that's where the majority of the population is actually, and I think coming back to your question, the cost of the universities and the funding that's being cut is also driving a lot of people going into continuous study courses rather than taking up the full degree in universities, right? Yeah. They're enrolling themselves into specific courses that colleges and even the universities are offering as a continuous study, because they know that a lot of immigrants are coming into this country who have family, who have kids, right? And they need to, they don't have a choice. They don't have the liberty of going into a university and studying full time. They have to work for their family. And that's where I think this continuous study programs have picked up, where, students are just doing it online or probably doing it part-time for a prolonged, period, and getting that skill, getting the degree, or at least a Canadian recognition on their resume, so that they can go back to what or their skill set was when they immigrated. Because right now most of them work in small jobs, part-time jobs to get by. So I think there are different sectors, and there's also there's another sector as well who are which I would probably eventually want to go into. When you retire after the age of 60 or 65, your education in Canada in any university is free. So I want to go back and pursue my PhD after I retire. So that's another section of student. And trust me, when I was studying, there were 2 students who were above the age of 65 in my class, and they were doing their PhD. Because they don't have anything to do. And they are pursuing research, and they're contributing, they're writing papers, they're publishing in journals.
This is an interesting piece
You
of
just read my
information.
mind. You just
Yeah.
read my mind. Yeah.
That,
I wanted to touch upon this aspect that, where whatever we are studying here, at the end of the day, not just, I'm talking just like as a whole student community. At the end of the day, we are contributing to the community here as well, at least for the upliftment of the community, contributing it back, giving it back. So yeah, that definitely, I like that thought. Pursuing PhD after 60, nice.
But and also, again, to go back to what you had mentioned, what Indrani had mentioned, was it also depends upon the immigration policies that the country has. Because
Sure.
when I had applied, I didn't have the option. They didn't even have the option of people applying for PR from outside.
Oh,
right? People like me who are single, who are experienced, but single, did not have an option to apply. There was no category in which you could apply for a PR from outside the country, right? So if you wanted to settle in Canada, only option would be for you to be a student. So the way that I look at is the previous, I don't know if it's the previous government or whatever, the previous immigration policy, what their focus was bringing people into our education system, train them, and then put them into the market. But what has happened now is bring in people into the market and tell them you can't do anything, get a degree, and then do it. You know what I?
Yeah.
I think that's where
if I
things
can
are
play
falling
the
apart.
if I can play the devil's advocate here, I would say a lot of people I have spoken to, they say that it is a very elitist policy, if you see it that way. They get doctors, they're making applications as doctors, and they get dentists, they're making application as dentists, and they get a PR because they are dentists, and their score is that much higher.
Yeah.
And once they are here, they are not able to practice. And then what happens to them? They're already dentists, when they left their previous job. Here they are scouting for work. They are looking out for part-time jobs. They are getting it as dental assistants. And then, of course, frustration, kicks in. Then either you have a choice to kind of go for 100,000 course, because dental is extremely expensive here, or else you kind of deal with your mediocre income and mediocre work. I mean, this is, at the policy level, there's something really wrong. Either it is extremely elitist, or either it doesn't think through. You are getting so many people giving in hopes of a better life, and then they come in here and they get a rude shock. And this is not only with dentists. There are so many stories of architects who have gone back. I mean, if they don't see value for what they get here, their experience, if their experience is not valued, then at the first place, the PR should have not been given to them. So if the equivalency is not at par, then in that case, they should have not said that it is at par at the first place. I mean, the entire system is extremely misleading on many levels.
True. And I mean, I think we should probably, I'll probably make a quick comment, but then I don't want to digress from the topic and talk about the immigration system.
Yeah.
But then I kind of feel, and I have told you about it offline as well, is the way it's happening right now, the way, the immigration is happening or whatever is happening, I feel, to my opinion, Canada is losing on good quality citizens. And when I say good quality citizens, I'm not saying like, people who are educated people. I'm not saying that. When I say citizen, I mean people who respect the country. right? When you bring in people, make them your permanent resident, you would want to keep them. You don't want them to come in and start cribbing about the country,
Absolutely.
right?
True.
And that's where that means that the citizen, that person would convert from being a PR, would continue cribbing about the country, because he would say that, hey, I was given this hope, or not hope, uh, you knew that you are not going to have a job, that's okay, but then I was given so and so points because I was a dentist, but there's nothing for dentist. I wasn't told that you have to. Again, it also depends on, nobody's going to tell you, you have to do your research.
This was devil's advocate, but this is a major chunk of immigrants,
Exactly.
And this is like arm twisting them into a skilled market, where you are almost coaxing them into an education, which is an investment of a certain number of dollars. So, so this is somewhere, there is a gap of understanding what we want out of the immigrants. But this was just playing the devil's advocate. This is just besides what we were discussing. Last but not the least, the question was, Ontario ranks the lowest in university funding, something that you already touched upon. Alberta slashed funding. How do you envision the education landscape for the future generation? Quick answers. Anybody can go first.
So Ontario has the least amount of education funding, and that again goes to the population. Anybody and everybody who comes to Canada lands in Ontario and doesn't want to get out of Ontario, firstly, right? So that's where a lot of universities, and there's limited resources again. But again, I think the way people are coming in, the way people are looking at education today is mostly to be able to place themselves in the job market rather than going into academia or going into research. So less and less people going into research. There are still people who are interested in research, but I know that they're not getting funded properly, but it's the way it is. But I think it's more going towards skill, trade, professional studies to place yourself in the job market rather than research as it used to be.
Yeah, so for now we are probably concentrating on filling in the gaps.
That's true. Yeah.
Shitangshu, your
I think Shayondip has covered most of the aspects of this question. Just my simple 2 cents on it is, sure, that's how I think that's how the requirement is, or that's how the requirement is being driven. But then with the new policies which are coming into the picture, where I believe it was the Minister of Education, I'm just forgetting the name here, but then 6 new policies were brought in. They're being implemented in the parliament, and it is being practiced as well, that they want to bring in people who are already waiting for their H-1B visas. And if they want to pursue higher education, then okay, fine, let's get them in. If they have experience, let's get them in as well. So I think it's, as of now, it is more or less related to the gap that they have, and they want to fill it fast because they have their own let's say requirement as such, with the advent of AI, with the advent of Web 3.0, or even the Industrial Revolution 4.0. So that is something that's what they're focusing on. They just want to quickly fill in that talent gap, if I may say so. And let's hope that over the course of time, the focus shifts on not only just filling such gaps, but retaining those talents, and where people at the end of the day, they would be happy to stay in Canada and not seek other greener pastures, if I may say so. So those are my thoughts. Thank
you so much. Hope is the word, and it's a big word. It encompasses everything. So I had a fascinating time with you two, discussing about education. And I learned a lot through this discussion. And I think our timeline says that, we didn't want to end this. It could have just gone on and on and on. But as I say, every good thing needs to end. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for organizing this, and thank you so much once again for bringing me in. And again, congratulations for setting this up and educating people. At least listening to these stories, people would get some idea, some thoughts. Obviously, these are our own thoughts, but then anything matters. Like any and everything helps.
Absolutely. This is for people who don't know, and would like to hear from somebody who's lived it. And here are people who are sharing their stories, and it's always a great help. I hope that this is also something that they take away, something from this entire chat.
Most definitely.
Well, thank you.
Thank you guys. Bye. Take care. See you in the next one.